Thank you very much. Well, look at us, how many we are, how much money is being invested, how much commitment is in place, and still there is a dissatisfaction on the results. So there is a legitimate question on what does all these efforts actually bring, how do we measure it, and how do we evaluate it. So I tried my 4.5 minutes to just touch upon a few issues that I find important. I will skip a lot, but I will come to the recommendations maybe, which I thought is also the purpose of this panel. I would like to mention 3 things in the very beginning. First, there are changing conditions and contexts for the efforts for inclusive policies. First one is that there is a growing pogromistic atmosphere in many parts of Europe. Pogromistic, we have to call it like that. Second,
it is.
Stereotyping, even among politicians in Europe, is not being considered racism, but it is racism. So I would like to see more effort on making a difference on this. There are many people in my country, in many other countries, they are going to tell you a racist joke, but before they say, I'm not a racist, but I would like to tell you a joke, and then they tell the racist joke. I think it's also the case in much more serious matters, such as policies. The third thing is that the social economic context is changing too. The economic crisis is going to turn into a social crisis in a few months or years. It's going to be a long-lasting one. And the social one will also touch upon the middle class. It's going to get poorer, especially like the lower part of the middle class. And this makes a part of the society to turn against those groups, Romas, in the history Jews also, to blame for it. And I can see this in many parts of Europe taking place already now. Fourth thing that is necessary to say is that there is very little trust for strategies because it's paper. What do you expect from strategies on paper in countries that learned how to fake documents and data to be delivered to the European Union and European Commission? So speaking from the perspective of a civil activist or a Roma or a local politician, there is little hope that papers can bring a change. However, I have to admit that there's been huge work done by the Commission, implementing especially the conditioning of funds in the future programmatic period. But let me come to the recommendations. In the first place, we have to make sure that the strategies, the Roma strategies on national level, are being really made consistent with the structural funds. Because they are not, and I can, if I'm observing the work that's being done in my country, but also other countries, they are basically thinking how to put it on paper, but it's very far from having it in practice. So I think it's the role of the Commission and the civil society to really watchdog this process. Second, second recommendation is to have a frank and in-depth evaluation what has been done by the investment of the structural funds in the countries in terms of social inclusion and Roma inclusion by now. Because if you see the amount of money that's been invested and if you see the progress, I don't think it's really relevant. Therefore, for the design of the future policies, this evaluation is necessary too, and I'm speaking on a national level. I'm not speaking on a European level or the NGO level, but a national level. Third, one thing that is very important to observe is that especially the new member states had difficulties, are having difficulties in promoting consultancy with the public. Once they were accessing the European Union as future members, they were forced to adopt legislation and to make people participate, make the civil society participate on the policies. Now we are members, and these participatory policies just disappeared. Therefore, I see a big role for the European Parliament to evaluate this and to see how participatory policies can be introduced again. And let me finish with 2 or 3 recommendations. For the civil society, I see a big task at the moment to engage in the coming 10 months, maybe 12 months, to really see what's going on in the ministries, how the priorities, the general ones, are being put on paper and voted by the governments, because social inclusion and addressing Roma especially are very often not being included in those on the top priorities for the for programming the structural funds in the future, in the coming period. And one last thing, what Katarina said already, so I will be very brief. We do need much more data, much more targeted data and modeling, because those who work on the national level have to argue with the ministries of finance. We have to mobilize local money to be complementary with the European funds, but now, times of crisis and budgetary cuts, there is very often an excuse: we do not have this money. But to show that this is an investment that basically saves and is much more rational than budgetary cuts, this is very important in our argumentation. So I try to be very brief. Thank you very much.